Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Today we fill out the Kirk Cousins bingo card that you can have by your side while you watch his Netflix special.
Hey, this is Arif Hasan with Pro Football Network. I have recently discovered I am the protagonist of reality, and Luke and Sam are my faithful sidekicks.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Arif is lying to you. I'm obviously the antagonist of reality.
More nonsense like that coming up on today's Minnesota Football Party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
It's the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's a new week. Welcome in here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm Sam Ekstrom, covering the Vikings here at Locked On Sports Minnesota, part of the Ron Johnson Show as well, and Minnesota Sports Rank 'em. That's Arif Hasan to my right. He's at Arif Hasan NFL, Pro Football Network, NFL expert and writer. Luke Braun is on mute right now. Now he's not. He's Locked On Vikings, and he is our Minnesota Vikings local daily podcast host, joining us on Mondays and Thursdays. Glad you are with us today. We're going to be talking about doomsday scenarios for the Vikings. How will the season unravel, if indeed it does? What's going to cause that? How could things go very pear-shaped for the Vikings? Most compelling training camp competitions: edge, tackle, corner, backup running back. We'll get into all of that as well. Plus, the Netflix special starring Kirk Cousins comes out on Wednesday. We will give you a bingo card of Kirk quirks to watch for. You can fill it out during your viewing of the show. I think we all need to binge it before Thursday's episode so we can come with some spicy takes. This is July in the NFL. This is your homework assignment.
Jesus.
This is what we do in July on NFL podcasting. We're brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Get started today. Free and available as well wherever you get your podcasts here on this program. And we're on YouTube. Please subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota. Before we have our fun with Kirk and quarterback, his Netflix special, let's talk doomsday scenarios for the Minnesota Vikings. Everyone's kind of projecting them middle of the pack. The over-unders are 8.5 at most sports books, right in the middle. But I think that we still view this team with somewhat of a high floor. Maybe not. Maybe you don't. But I think most probably think this team is going to be at minimum around that 500 mark. But how could the wheels fall off? How could it go disastrously wrong? Let's start with you, Luke Braun. You're back from a rejuvenating trip. How was it? How are you doing?
It was lovely. There were many a travel nightmare. United Airlines, I hope, dies in a fire. But honestly, with the Vikings having a high floor, for some, that is the doomsday scenario, right? There's a contingent of Vikings fans that is either win the Super Bowl or please win one game. There's no in between. Anything in between is bad team management. So for me, the doomsday scenario is everything goes normal and the Vikings end up like 9-8 and they get the 7 seed and lose in the wild card round. That's like the worst thing for people. And that's like the prediction that if you are a weak Vikings fan that hates winning, you can just skip the season. That's what's going to happen.
Weak.
Get the 21st pick in the draft.
I say it all the time.
Your spirit is wanting.
Yes. Toughen up. It's sports.
Now, are you saying that is your doomsday, Luke Braun, or is that just some people's doomsday?
No, I feel like I'll leave the easier answers to everyone else about like the corners are bad or whatever. But I'll say the doomsday scenario is everything turns out normally and they hover around 500 and they're just okay. And then they don't get a top 5 draft pick, which if you look at like the New York Jets is clearly what saves a franchise.
Arif Hasan.
Random Zach Wilson slander just out of nowhere, man. Just a
It's
drive
never out of
by.
nowhere. It's always appropriate.
When was Geno
Sam
Smith
Darnold
picked?
too.
Was Geno Smith a top 10 guy?
No,
No, he was
I
the
don't think
second
he
round
was
pick.
the first
Oh,
round. Yeah.
Yeah.
never mind.
But they did fumble that, it turns out. So, you know.
I love how that both did
Very
and didn't
good,
work
Geno
out.
Smith.
Yeah.
It both did and didn't work out, and both in ways that disadvantage the Jets.
Yeah, it's just perfect. It really is ideal. No, I mean, so the Vikings doomsday scenarios, we could go through all of the familiar or likely scenarios that the Vikings could doom themselves, from ones that are maybe not necessarily in the cards based off of a look at the roster, but are in the cards because spiritually they are the Vikings, like a missed kick, taking them out of the playoffs or something like that. That's like on the table, right? Or we could talk about the cornerbacks and how they're not ready and now they're all, unreliable and don't have experience, and only got Byron Murphy, and the defense could actually get worse instead of better. Or Kirk Cousins no longer has the creativity that he had last season, but is not as efficient as he was in previous seasons. You just get the worst of both worlds. All of those are normal doomsday scenarios for the Vikings. But the problem is the Vikings continue to invent new ways to hurt you. And football is such a multifaceted sport, right? There are so many things that can happen in a football game that can doom you, right? The idea, for example, that the Vikings could begin losing a number of games because their long snapper is injured, that's on the table. Like they've experimented with long snappers dooming their season before, but they've never fully committed. They've always had a Jared Allen or a guy willing to cut off his pinky, right? It's just, those things have prevented I'm not talking about Ronnie Lott. I just want to be clear, but those things have prevented, that particular doomsday scenario from playing out. We've seen, punting problems from Vikings punters, but have we seen a punter doom the season? Maybe we'll see that. So, I think that the problem with the Vikings is that they will find an unheard of way for your season to go awry. And it is a fool's errand to try and predict out of the infinite things that could make a season go sideways. Like Kirk Cousins could just, I don't know, join a cult.
What is the more damaging injury or cult-related absence that could happen on this team?
It's quarterback. It's always quarterback. Stop asking this question, Sam.
Well, Justin Jefferson's decent at his job. I agree that Kirk Cousins is the more damaging loss because you have other receivers. But do you guys both agree with that?
You could go with Jefferson if you really want to.
Disheartening.
If you really want to doom with Jefferson, you could say that like he doesn't sign a contract extension this offseason. Like the Vikings choose to wait, like Mike Florio posited, and then he gets hurt, which muddies the whole thing, and then he doesn't sign a contract extension. He actually just becomes a free agent.
That's a doomsday scenario that is not related to wins or losses.
He's got a fifth-year option,
but
but they don't pick it up because he got hurt. Or wait, no,
it's already picked up.
They trade
dog.
Yeah, what am I talking about?
Trade him for a seventh-round pick. That's the doomsday scenario.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
that's it.
I mean, there's enough on the roster right now for us to like begin moving into doomsday scenario, right? Like Daniil Hunter could force a trade, right? Like that could be, So if like let's say Kirk Cousins remains the Iron Man that he is, right? You could still have a Justin Jefferson injury. You could have a Daniil Hunter, forcing a trade. You could have, discontent, in the locker room in some area, right? So like, a player gets arrested, right? We didn't even talk about that one. That is almost certainly on the table. So, that's why are we talking about this, Sam? This is so sad.
And I love it. I think the realistic doomsday is that the defense is just bad, the way it was last year. No better, no worse.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense is the way it was last year, but the win total is like
close game.
So much worse. Like things could be the defense. You know what? The defense could even be better. The defense, 2011. Where they lose every close game. and the defense is bad.
Yeah.
There's a 3-13 year, right? Yep.
Thank you, Donovan.
How about
Donovan McNabb? Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, that was McNabb. So let's do
Jalen
a
Hall week
35
6 breakout
passing
game.
let's do an ad lib retrospective on the 2011 Vikings. Season starts. Percy Harvin houses it in San Diego,
And
they
McNabb
blow
passes for like 35 yards in that game.
and they blow a halftime lead. Next week at home, Tampa, they look unstoppable in the first half and blow 17-point lead, 20-point lead.
Who was Tampa's quarterback at the time?
Josh Freeman.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he makes a return appearance.
That was foreshadowing. Vince Gilligan, plant and payoff.
Week 3, they look unstoppable against Detroit at home. 20-point lead, 23-point lead.
Oh,
They
right,
lose
and
that
blow
game
it.
in overtime.
Yeah, I think the only lead they don't blow is the Cardinals game, which I don't know if that's like a couple of weeks down the road from here, but they just scored so many points in like the first quarter that even the Vikings could not blow
The
it, if I'm
Cardinals-
remembering this correctly.
That box score, I think it was
but
week
none
5.
of us believed that. We were like, oh,
Yeah,
how are
we
we
were
going to
just
pull
like-
it off this
He
time?
was like 28-0. I don't know what this is.
28-0, and McNabb had 12 yards. I don't know how it came together.
It's like watching Scooby-Doo struggle to solve a mystery. It's like, it's not a question of if, it's how.
It's how. Yeah.
Let's look at this box score. This is what we do in July, folks. So October 9th, 2011, Pro Football Database, 28-0 after one quarter. Good recollection. Adrian Peterson, 4-yard run. Adrian Peterson, 24-yard run. Donovan McNabb, 4-yard run, not pass. Adrian Peterson, 14-yard run. So big fantasy day for Adrian.
Donovan, you're like 38 years old. What are you doing running the ball, man?
Donovan, 10 of 21 for 169 yards. So
Okay, that's what you're doing. Nice, by the way.
yeah, not as pitiful as I thought, but I don't think
Yeah.
they exactly 10 of 21. He was not lighting anything up on that.
What
day.
happened to Adrian that year? Do you remember, Sam? Did anything notable happen with Adrian that year?
Speaking of
I
doomsday
getting out a
scenarios,
torn ACL.
Yeah, and I'm talking about the Deshaun Gomez potentially pulling his leg on FedEx Field for the torn ACL. Allegedly.
Yes. Yes.
Fun thing about this
you-
season, Donovan McNabb in 2011 was my pro player comp for Hendon Hooker this year.
Does he always dirt the ball? Is that like a thing?
What
More
year
than you hope.
Donovan McNabb? Did you
2011
say his
Donovan
pro comp
McNabb.
was 2011 Donovan McNabb?
That's rough.
That is correct. That is what I said.
Gosh, you hate
during
him
draft
so
season
much.
about him. I did.
That is as bad an insult as you can give a prospect.
What's amazing is that that's pretty What's amazing is that the 2011 Vikings were just disaster. They were on fire the whole time. It was miserable. And I think a lot of us were just like, man, it's better than 2010. It's just
But
At least we
all
suck,
right.
but like normally.
It was a
Yeah,
boring
right, yeah.
suck. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just
With
a
no
yeah.
with no
And
expectation.
the thing is, a boring suck is like having a ton of first quarter leads and blowing them for losses. Like these are legitimately
right.
exciting games, and we're just like, thank God the season is calm.
The stadium is still erect. Like this is
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, the stadium's at full mast, if you will, to use your.
So
And the quarterback,
this is,
as far as we know, isn't.
Well, if he
Trying
is,
to
he's
circle
not
this back.
sending.
to
Yeah, No
to
documented evidence.
2023.
Right.
This is why it's so hard to, I think, picture the ultimate doomsday scenario, right? Like, and if
Because
you
we've been through it.
and FanDuel, well, so for instance, FanDuel alternate win lines under 5.5 is like the longest odds that they post, plus 550, because they just don't that's not realistic at all in their mind that the Vikings win 5 or fewer games because Kirk Cousins has too high of a
Gives you
floor.
Yeah.
Donovan McNabb, he is not.
But there's always the possibility that the Birds get their revenge and collapse US Bank Stadium.
Yeah.
Always
There
a
is-
possibility. Yeah.
Yep.
as much as Kirk Cousins is known for protecting his body and not getting hurt and taking good care of himself and stuff, that possibility always is the case. You can always just step wrong and be unlucky.
Yeah, that's like the thing about like these Iron Man records. Iron Man records are like a product of being lucky. More like obviously there is some level of skill involved, but no amount of skill will guarantee a 0% chance of injury, right? And so the ability to kind of maintain your health is both a product of the work that you put in and an enormous amount of luck. And also you can't like tell me that Brett Favre was doing the most to take care of his body. Right?
No,
like that's
certainly not. And in fact, see,
well, to trick his brain into thinking he was taking care of his body, maybe.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, he was doing.
It's a different thing with Favre.
Famously, that, yeah.
So, like, Favre was actually concussed, hurt, drunk, high. Like, he was playing through all of those actual physical things. Whereas I think Kirk Cousins just has the genetic makeup. Like, he just doesn't get hurt. Like, his body.
That is such a weird superpower for like an average talented quarterback to have.
Right. A fairly unathletic, like not tremendously built. Although we saw his abs, Kirk
he's jacked.
Kirk Cochain's video. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's like working out every day as an NFL quarterback. But when we compare him to his peers at the position as opposed to
remember that picture of wasn't it like Eli Manning at the beach and it's like just a dad bod? Like this dude has two Super Bowls.
That ruled.
Yeah.
Like
and that's another guy that never got hurt, right? Did Eli ever get hurt?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think the famous start streak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Benched by Ben McAdoo.
Ben McAdoo
went crazy over it.
Yeah. And honestly, like I mentioned Jay Cutler,
if I
and
recall,
obviously
Geno Smith.
For Geno Smith, yeah. Which was the right move, and Ben McAdoo was run out for the wrong reasons. But I want to add that, like, so Jay Cutler, obviously he got hurt a number of times. But for somebody who's like dealing with diabetes, actually, that's very impressive how long he was able to stay on the field. I will add that.
Mm-hmm. No, that is for sure. Let's do our Kirk Cousins bingo card since we're talking Kirk and it's fun. Well. Let's fill it out after a word from FanDuel. I just told folks that you can adjust the win totals at FanDuel right now. You can go and bet Vikings over 5.5 wins. You can put your mortgage on it and win like $8, but you can do it. You can also bet them under 11.5 wins. You can put your other mortgage on it. You can win $7. But that's all at FanDuel. There's hundreds of ways to wager on NFL futures and also MLB games after the All-Star break. All-Star game, of course, coming up. But you can get in the action by betting 20, getting 200. You will get 10 times your initial bet if you're a new customer in bonus bets back. So bet 20, get 200. Not a bad promotion over there at FanDuel. You can bet run lines, over-unders, all the MLB lines, and all the NFL future lines as well at FanDuel Sportsbook. It's an easy-to-use app. You get paid instantly when you win. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get those bonus bets and bet at FanDuel today. All right, let's do a screen share so people can follow along. I think that this is just a shout 'em out kind of activity. We're going to fill out 24 spots. Freebie in the middle. What are quirks or events or goofy things that we're going to see on the Netflix special on Wednesday? I've got a few suggestions to get it started.
So can we make the free square of Kirk Cochains, because that's obviously going to come up in a Netflix show recounting the Viking season about Kirk Cousins, right? That has to be a freebie, right?
Yes, sounds good. I will put free. I also have grilling.
Oh, that's good.
That's a good one.
I have go ahead.
We need like some like particularly specific reference to God, and I'm trying to like in my brain figure out how Kirk would do it in a way that is kind of unique to him, right? Because every player, that is religious, which are most players, will find a way to reference God. But like Kirk does it in a particular and unique way. Maybe how about this? some reference to how he does not fear death, but for religious reasons and not for badass reasons.
For Davy Jones reasons.
Okay, so if I just put, if I die, I die.
Yeah.
How about that?
Okay.
But not. It doesn't have to be that quote for you to be able to check off that bingo. Is
If I
just
die,
I die the conversation
spiritually,
about
philosophy.
Yeah,
there
spiritually.
You go.
Yeah, great.
Okay, what about the quote? Tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Oh God, that's in there.
There we go.
Something about,
what about
like playing like a CEO, right? I'm the CEO of the team.
CEO.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that one's.
We got 24 spots, so we gotta. Yeah, I
this
put them all up
is
there.
This is like a profile. I'm going to say a family church outing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
getting the kids dressed up.
Julie lays out the outfits.
Yeah. Some reference.
That should be one.
Julie actually, yeah, Julie dresses me.
Julie
dresses me.
Dressing.
Yeah. But also some reference to Kirk being particularly frugal, right? Like either it's, his car is like a used car that's beat up or, whatever. But the frugality, I think, is like pretty central to his character.
The Vans.
Yep. What about this? Something that's not central to his character, but we have heard it on occasion, a Kirk curse word.
Oh.
Wow.
Because that could also come up in the context of like sideline video during a game, locker room, right? Like we've heard it. Mm-hmm. We've heard it a couple times. We'll see if it makes it to Netflix. Because they would highlight that too, right? As sort of a contrast to his normal character. Wow, Kirk is fired up.
Do you think there's a chance we could get a Kirk Cousins, Kevin O'Connell, unknown sideline spat?
I wrote that down.
Like,
yes, an argument. How about an argument of any kind?
Argument.
Yeah,
but with Kevin O'Connell specifically, because we've seen him argue with receivers.
Okay.
Yeah. You like that or you Vike that somewhere in there?
That
probably you like
first space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic start, guys. We got still about 10 more. How about a Don Cousins cameo?
I mean, he's important to Kirk's life.
Perfect.
He would likely show up. Yeah.
Okay.
Boy. Man. So this one has to be for Kirk because it would be too easy to apply to Mariota, but like no one believes in me type thing. Because I mean, no one actually does believe in Mariota. Like it would not be fair to include the whole.
There you go. Yep. Anything that might come out of some of the specific games that happened during the season, like.
What do you think he would be doing during like the Colts game, right? When they're leading this like tremendous historic comeback, like what do you think would come up in his brain that we would see as like an interesting bingo card moment?
See, it might be a very uninteresting thing. That is.
What about like a very uninspiring pep talk?
Oh, yes.
There you go. Milk toast pep talk.
That's good.
Like the one from 2018 everybody freaked out about when he was like, great. We're going to go win, guys. Vikes on 3. And everybody was like, wow, what a leader.
Yeah. But like, there's probably a reason that like in the recounting of the Colts game, they told us the story of Patrick Peterson's pep talk and not Kirk Cousins' pep talk.
Yeah.
Man, that one's good. Huh.
Okay. How about Kirk playing catch with his kids?
There you go.
Sure.
How about mention of contract?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Put that in there. Kirk talking up an objectively bad player.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I love that.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we got 8 more, so we can make them easy if you want. 8 more.
Kirk is more bitter at the Washington football team than you think.
Ooh, I like that.
Like an unseen bitterness for that Washington game. Because I always didn't believe him when he was like, no, it's just like a homecoming, you know.
He's been so complimentary of Washington over the years that this is a good one. Yeah, this is a good one.
Well, I mean, now the guy he likes no longer is there. Like Dan Snyder, or the guy he doesn't like is no longer there, right? Like Dan Snyder's just gone. And that's the guy he hated the most, which I think is a pretty universal.
That's not a hot take.
Kirk
but
Cousins
not at the time of that game. Oh, yeah. Kirk Cousins in his office.
Yeah. My understanding is that he may not have that office anymore, but I don't care. I want that on the bingo card.
I think the office that I'm thinking of, the like broom closet looking one, was in Washington. Brutal. I don't know what he has in Minnesota.
He had something when he showed up in Minnesota, but I don't know if it's still there. But yeah, Kirk in an office, I think, is just good stuff.
Like a late night tape session.
Late night tape session. What about some words or descriptors that someone would use in a talking head about Kirk Cousins?
Reliable.
Described as reliable.
I can't think of like another, like that seems like the most likely, like if I'm a talking head trying to compliment this guy.
Most likely like backhanded compliment.
Yeah. You can count on him.
Yeah.
He's always there.
How about Kirk?
Kirk
getting laughed at behind his back. How about that?
Oh, that's a good one. Who are the backup quarterbacks last year? It was like Nick Mullins and who else?
It was Mullins, yeah.
It's just Mullins.
Oh, can we throw an emphatic golly in there?
Oh, a golly or a G Willikers.
Yeah, G Willikers.
Yeah,
like a curse that Leave It to Beaver would say.
What's the name for when people take like Shakespeare plays and make them kid friendly? Bowdlerize or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know that word.
Yeah, there's this guy named Bowdler who like tried.
I'm familiar with the Leo adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, but I didn't know there was a word for that.
Yeah, so like a nerdy exclamation covers it, but like a Bowdlerized swear would be nice. But yeah, golly, gee willikers, gosh, darn it.
Like a nerdy, it's got to be like a curse replacement.
Yeah, nerdy swear. There you go. Yeah,
nerdy
which
swear.
We have Kirk cursing for real, and then Kirk cursing fake on the bingo card. Yeah. Kirk attempting to mentor the backup quarterbacks. Who was there a practice squad guy? I'm like, I feel like there was a young quarterback, but it wasn't Kellen Mond.
Josh Rosen?
Yes.
Can we just put Josh Rosen appears anywhere?
Josh Rosen appeared. Josh Rosen mentioned.
Josh Rosen cameo right next to Don. That's our last square. We want to go Josh Rosen.
I mean, that one sucks as a last square, but some of these ones are kind of weak sauce anyway. So, you know,
I feel like we're running out of steam.
What about Kirk having a secret handshake or a choreographed handshake with a teammate?
Okay, I like that, but I also want to replace something here. Maybe the mentoring backups one with Kirk Cousins producing a new niche nerdy interest. Because that's like a thing that like his teammates have told him
kill
about
the late night tape session. That one's weak.
Oh, actually, yeah, kill that one. Yeah. But it's like because like one time he was like talking to the offensive line about units of time, right? Like how he's like, this is what a microsecond is. This is what a fortnight is. I find that interesting, and that like fine, whatever. But like that's kind of like a weird thing to bring up in a locker room. That's perfectly Kirk.
I love it.
And when you say new, is it new in terms of like one we don't know that he already?
Yeah, new to us.
New to us as an interest of him, or new as in an interest that we have never thought about before?
As in, it's not been reported.
We did not know that Kirk had this particular interest.
Okay.
It does not have to be a new field of study that we've never heard of.
So he likes, for instance, The Office. We know he's a big Office nerd.
Right.
The TV
show. And he loves Nicolas Cage movies, so we can't include that. Which
he and
that
Tom
actually would not have been a
Compton
bad one to
had some
show up.
stuff when Tom Compton was here. They were like Cycles of the Moon.
Right. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
like,
yeah. If something adjacent
not like
to Moon
I found
Cycles.
a new band.
No.
that
Yeah.
I like.
It'd be like, hey, have you ever heard of the Fae? And then he like tells you about like historical brownies or something.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, all right.
Like this is how flour is milled.
Yeah. And then he takes you on a tour.
Yeah.
I
I watched a documentary on it and he wants to tell you about it. Yeah.
Perfect. There we go. Yeah.
All right. We'll put the bingo card out on Twitter for all to enjoy. Enjoy Quarterback on Netflix Wednesday.
We just did a bunch of free promo. Unless are we getting paid for this?
A lot. Nope, not a dime. Netflix hung up on me. All right. We're partners with SiriusXM, the SXM app. Find all of our shows. Ron Johnson, Minnesota Football Party, Minnesota Sports Rank 'em. Search Locked On Sports Minnesota on the SXM app. All right, let's end with best position battles. This is a very traditional podcast topic, not like what we've talked about up to this point. Best position battles, Arif. What's one or two that stand out to you?
I mean, I think the one that kind of drives a lot of our understanding of whether or not the Vikings have made the right moves and what's going to help kind of define the season is cornerback, right? We have an understanding now that that Caleb Evans is going to win the starting job, which is pretty unusual, a second-year, fourth-round pick, right? And so in two receiver sets, I think we think that there's a soft expectation that a Caleb Evans is going to start opposite Byron Murphy, and then in nickel sets, maybe Mekhi Blackman comes in. But like any of that could change, like, right? Like, I don't think any of us would be like surprised if like Jawan Williams like won a starting job. I think we'd be maybe disappointed, but we wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Andrew Booth obviously has got like the most draft capital out of any of the guys that the Vikings have like developed that are still on the roster. And so the idea that he's not even a favorite, maybe he could play himself into becoming a favorite for one of those jobs. So I think the cornerback training camp battle is both kind of interesting and impactful. So that's probably the one I would highlight the most.
Mm-hmm. Braun?
I think elsewhere in the secondary, the safety one is going to be the one that everybody looks at, right? Can Lewis find his way somewhere on into the rotation or find his way into the starting lineup, beat out Josh Metellus and Cam Bynum. We kind of assumed last year that he could, he didn't. Can he do it year two is the big one, but I kind of am more compelled by some of the deeper roster stuff every year. Like the kind of roster bubble ones. Like I think about like Brandon Powell and Jalen Reagor, keep one. That's kind of a battle for punt.
Brain is wired. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It always, every year. And like that's the intrigue of the preseason, right? Like that punt returner battle is kind of a loser goes home battle. Or I think about like Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall, who gets to be QB2. That's really interesting to me. Will they keep a third one if it's Jaron Hall? Like it, now the rules are different, so it's a little bit more likely to keep a third one, but will they only keep two anyways because they want to keep somebody else on the roster? There's all kinds of interesting questions. When you get to that deep part of the roster and the roster bubble, I think that's what compels me the most in the preseason, which if you've listened to the way Kevin O'Connell talks about it, we're not seeing any starters. Cam Bynum is not going to play in the preseason unless he is losing his starting job. So this is kind of, if you want some intrigue in the preseason, it's an elimination game.
Speaking of intrigue in the preseason, remember we have our preseason fantasy teams. I'm so excited.
Oh, right. Oh, no.
1 month away, you guys, for preseason fantasy football. It's going to be fantastic. We've seen, and I think the correct answer, like the most vital competition is at corner because those guys are going to be exposed so many times during a game. I also think that sans Daniil, this edge battle is huge because if Daniil's not in the picture, we've seen how punchless edge rushing can just totally neuter a defense. Like even with like when Unique Ngakoue was struggling, except for his 1 sack per game, it was hard to watch when DJ
It's usually
Wonnum
a pretty good sack. I would say, like we add that it looked pretty good when he did get the sack. I will say.
Yeah. No, he was good for 1 per game for sure. But then DJ Wonnum replacing him, like the 2020 pass rush was just so pitiful to watch, and you feel that, like you feel that in the course of a game.
Horrible.
Yeah, it
They
wasn't
would
just
just
the
get
pass rush.
walked
They like
so hard.
yeah, it was every element of playing the position they were bad at.
So
Anyways, if
big.
Danielle Hunter gets traded, guess who's starting? It's the same guy.
Unique Ngakoue. It's Unique Ngakoue.
Honestly, it
be.
might be Unique Ngakoue and DJ Wanham. Like,
He's available, man. Go get him. Go get your guys.
Marcus Davenport moves inside. Your edge rushers might look a little too familiar.
PTSD,
actually,
PTSD.
That's like an interesting element of the edge competition is if Marcus Davenport is playing at a weight
Does he count? Yeah.
that kind of suits. Yeah. Because if he like primarily plays inside because he's like 280, 300, that like opens up, right? Who's playing a true edge. And in a Brian Flores defense with shifting fronts, there's like, possibility that he's playing a 5. And so he's like a down lineman that's playing on, the head up or outside the tackle. And so it's like kind of an edge, kind of like Tano Passano did with the Chiefs. But like, I think primarily we're thinking of guys like rushing off the edge, having a little bit of extra space. People like, Patrick Jones or DJ Wanham or, whatever, right? So like what's going to happen there? That is a real possibility that we get one of these undrafteds like Andre Carter to just make an appearance and do something.
This is
Between
where
Patrick Jones and DJ Wanham, who do we think ends up, injury notwithstanding, getting more run this season?
So like the Vikings have trusted Wanham a lot more just over the course of a lot. And obviously it's 2 different coaching staffs, but like I want to say Wanham, but it's just for a backup, the floor is like relatively high and the ceiling is there's like a thin band of performance you can expect out of this guy, unblocked pressures aside.
Thank you, Justin Fields.
Thank you, Justin Fields. But I think that there's still more potentially to unlock with Patrick Jones. I kind like it. My brain is just saying it's got to be DJ Wanham. He's just like more of a guy that they know what they're getting. But I just feel like there's just but I'm just gonna go with Patrick Jones because I just feel like there's just potentially something you could do with that.
Yeah, I too would go with Patrick
set
Jones.
The edge. And that's the big difference is DJ Wanham.
And he had some moments last year, which is nice.
Yeah, he had some moments of disruption and explosion, and there's this like excitement that is like really visible. But Patrick Jones can take on a tackle and not get washed out, in the way that DJ Wanham, famously undersized, is always going to struggle with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just
DJ
less
Wanham compared to Danielle Hunter coming out.
Fewer scuffles.
The next Danielle Hunter, Andre Patterson.
Fewer struggles with Patrick Jones than DJ Wanham, who's proven with a very big sample size that it's hard for him to play football.
Yeah, that sample size in and of itself is kind of an indication. There's a reason that Patrick Jones didn't have a big sample size, and it's because DJ Wanham was earning reps over him.
Yeah, and that's important. Is that the signal that we get from coaches' decisions is important.
But this is why Braun's fascination in like the roster bubble battles, I think, is important here, because this is not a deep roster, right? Like there's a lot of positions where number 1 and number 4 might not be that different, right? Or maybe take out number 1 where they're top heavy, right? Like you've got a Harrison Smith and then you've got a bunch of other safeties kind of in this pot. Same with defensive line and edge rusher. So it's more about who makes the team. And if you make the team, you have a chance to play. There's probably going to be rotations at a lot of places and chances for guys to fall back and lose reps and then get replaced, right? Like, I don't think there's a lot of players on that defense that are immune to being benched or rotated out. So it is important who makes the team in the end, like Braun was pointing out. So watching those bubble positions, I think like the guy number 53 on the roster could play. There might not be any red shirts this year per se with the way this defense is structured. Thoughts on that?
Especially in the way that Brian Flores defenses approach the secondary. Guy number 53 kind of like will play. Like everybody gets in, everybody rotates, everybody's got a matchup and a role. Josh Metellus might be listed as safety 3, but he's like got his role. That's his job. That's the thing that he does. And it might even be the same for Scene, who he's also rotated in some like 3 safety sets, right? Or has it only been when like Harrison Smith has been out?
I mean,
in practice
in
or last year?
In in like mini camp and practice and stuff. Because
Yeah.
I know Metellus has gotten more run and is clearly above him on the depth chart, but haven't there been like moments where Scene is out there and it's like it's this rotation where everybody has some role, and we have to kind of determine who is safety 1, safety 2, safety 3, safety 4 by snap counts, but nobody's a 0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well put.
Yeah, I will add though that like when you take a look at kind of the depth that they have, back to the edge rusher conversation, you look at the depth that they have at edge rusher, and then you look at like the depth that they have at receiver, right? It's not as if like we know that like Christian Jackson is good or that Thayer Thomas is good, right? We don't know that. But we're more excited about them, or we're more excited even about like some of the like defensive tackle positions, right? Like we could see something with Onamewo, right? We could see something with like Jaquelin Roy. There's like very outside of like Andre Carter, there's just very little at depth for edge rusher where you just like feel legitimately excited, unless like you're a really big Luigi Villain stan, in which case power to you. But like there's like a lot less for us to be like, yeah, I get it. I see. Like I can chart the path here for like an exciting story to be written about like an undrafted guy or a bottom of the roster guy to make a big impact. Like if Christian Jackson makes a big impact, I mean, that would be a surprise. There's no question about that. That'd be a really phenomenal story, but it would also be well covered enough because we've been watching this guy do all right in minicamp against the ones sometimes, right? Where we can track and chart and see what that would look like, right? Like it is maybe 1%, maybe less than 1% chance that he overtakes KJ Osborne. But if he does, we get it. We can see what that looks like. It is very difficult for us to see what that looks like at edge rusher. There's just not a lot of promise behind the mediocre starter like position. It's just the whole position is like shot right now. And so that's like, I think the frustrating thing about it.
Let's end the show with this on a little more positive note as well.
Start the clock. It's time to execute the 4-minute drill.
All right, only 3 of us, so you get a minute 20 each to plead a case for a Viking to make the Pro Bowl for the first time this season. A first-time Pro Bowler on the roster. Who's it going to be, Luke?
I don't need it's Darisaw. I feel like Darisaw's like the only answer to this question. It's funny with offensive linemen, they kind of will have their true breakout season, but nobody notices because it's O-line. I'm seeing people say, man, Christian Darisaw has really solidified himself as like a top 20 tackle. And it's like, are you kidding me? Top 20? This dude's in the top 5. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, of all tackles, I think. So in, the upper third, but it's like, come on. Mm-hmm. The stuff that Christian Darisaw did last year, the things that the Vikings asked of him, the degree of difficulty, and then the excellence to which he accomplished that task was absolutely incredible. But I think with the Pro Bowl in general, and especially with offensive line, these things tend to lag a year. So I think that Christian Darisaw has already proven who he is, but this year everybody's going to notice that's going to put him in the Pro Bowl.
All right. Well, I can't take Christian Darisaw. That is the best player to take for, I think, this argument. I kind of want to avoid taking like the first round rookie. I feel like that's a cop out. So instead, I'm going to take the slightly more difficult position of Marcus Davenport, who played very poorly last year, right? But has a history of production that can translate into something tangible on the field in the right environment. So the problem with Marcus Davenport last year was that his pressures weren't converting into sacks and he wasn't turning a ton of his wins into pressures, but he actually had a fairly high pass rush win rate. One reason he couldn't do that is because Cameron Jordan fell off. In fact, Marcus Davenport was double teamed more often than Cameron Jordan because he was a bigger threat at 300 pounds coming off the edge to do damage than Cameron Jordan was, despite Cameron Jordan's history. I think I'm saying Jordan Cameron wrong. Anyway.
No, it's Cam Jordan.
Right? No, it's Cam Jordan, right? Because Steve Jordan's son. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But the thing is, Davenport has a pass rush win rate over his career of almost 18%. That is a top 15 mark across the NFL. His pressure percentage of 14% is also a top 15 mark over the course of his time in the NFL. He hasn't turned those pressures into sacks, but we know that pressures and wins predict sacks better than sacks themselves do. If Danielle Hunter plays this season, and I think there's a strong possibility he does, he's more likely to see attention. That opens up space for something like Marcus Davenport, who is very likely to show up at camp at his ideal playing weight of 260 instead of 280 or 300. And that's going to allow him to make some pressure. And we know he's going to get a lot of snaps because who's going to replace him? We just talked about it.
Yeah, a star in the making. I think that having the two best candidates taken, I'm going to go with a guy that I'm actually not high on, but Alexander Mattison, because
okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a path for him to rush at a career best efficiency wise. There's a chance, right? He could go for 4.8 yards per carry, gets 200 touches. Okay, then he's around 1,000 yards. Well, there was only like 16 or 15,000 yard backs last year. So if he was like had the 8th most yards in the NFL somehow, because again, there just aren't that many 1,000-yard guys anymore. That's the way the league works. I could see him being like an alternate, named after some like 3 people drop out. Alexander Mattison. Oh, hey, he had 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. Send him in.
Hey, a lot of the backs that people are excited about are in the AFC. It's just Christian McCaffrey and Saquon you got to worry about.
Yeah, so last year's rushing leaders, Jacobs, AFC, Henry, AFC, Chubb, AFC, Saquon, you mentioned. Sanders is gone, right?
He's in Carolina now, I think.
So he's Carolina.
NFC, but I don't see him getting like a huge workload there.
Dalvin, probably AFC.
Probably. Zeke,
ETN,
we don't know.
AFC.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams, where's he now?
New Orleans, I think. But that
probably not a big workload there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at. That's our
Ryan Wright. I want to show that. I want to throw the name Ryan Wright out too. If you can find a little more consistency, I feel like he could get there.
Plus, I just feel like if you're at a specialist position and you're memeable, you're just more likely to get those Pro Bowl votes. Yeah, and he's pretty memeable. He's no McAfee, which, like, obviously as a media personality, you can have some
radio. All of this
as a player. I mean, he was very memeable, but Ryan Wright is.
Yeah.
If Greg Joseph was a little cooler, the Vikings would have such a cool group of specialists. Greg Joseph is not cool.
If like 1/3 of the specialists were cooler, they'd have a cool group.
Because DePaula,
sick group.
DePaula
best
is
long
awesome,
snapper in the league.
Right, Wright is like a very distinctive player at his position.
Yes.
If they had a kicker with any character, they would have the trifecta.
I feel like the Vikings are hesitant about character at the specialist positions just after the Chris Chloe thing.
Fair enough.
They haven't avoided it entirely, right? They got the Scottish Hammer for a second, right? I'm just saying, like, I think that they're just like, it doesn't. We don't need problems. This position's not that important. We can't have a position that's not that important have problems.
They're still scarred.
No far left specialists. Got it. That goes double for kickers.
It's the particular trauma there.
Yeah.
Tomorrow on the Minnesota Football Party, Luke Inman and I are back at it. Luke will rejoin the show. Arif and Luke Braun will be back with us on Thursday. But thank you for tuning in. Subscribe on YouTube for free, and we're also available wherever you get your podcasts. Roku, Amazon Fire, Sirius XM, lots of ways to digest the show. We appreciate you watching, and so long for now on the Minnesota Football Party.